Have you ever wandered around an ancient city while hiking that wouldn't let you leave? Stay still as we give you an encounter. Story 1. Middle of the unknown square city. We're 5 hours into our forest hike. My load feels heavier than when we first started, and my boots are dirty. Alan, Catherine, Frank, and Michelle were my cousins. Our aim was straightforward: to locate an experience that surpasses the often traveled paths and congested vantage points. Our desire was for something unique and unforgettable. Alan, who has been leading the route, pauses abruptly and gestures for us to look at something, pointing to a path that veers off to the right. Dangling tree limbs, thick grass, and overgrown plants were blocking this narrow roadway. It's possible to stroll right by it without realizing its presence. However, Michelle pulled out her phone and launched the map app, and she said the map doesn't show it, holding the screen so we could all see. Her expression was both intrigued and perplexed. Mark looked astonished by this new information as his eyes widened. "Shall we investigate it?" Seemingly expecting we would say yes, he asked. A hint of excitement dominates the gathering, I can tell. I say, "Let's do it," because I'm also caught up in it. I thought we were here for an adventure. Excitement and curiosity were mixed to create an exciting environment. We picked our way through the undergrowth, dodging prickly branches and walking on uneven ground that seemed to have been left untraversed for decades. Meanwhile, we heard the fabric creasing slightly as our garments got hooked on twigs. Using the little machete Frank had brought along in case something happened, we took turns hacking away at the blocking foliage. We make our way through the dense woodland and into an open space after about 20 minutes of following this secret trail. Our spines tingled at what we witnessed next. The city stretches out in front of us, taking up many square miles at minimum. The structures rose to a height of 6 or 7 stories, made of a stone that has a subtle iridescent quality that shimmers in the dappled sunlight. The architecture was a combination of styles that we couldn't immediately place, as if various ages and cultures contributed to its construction. Even so, these buildings are decorated with elaborate carvings that display a variety of designs, from geometric patterns to realistic animal representations. Additionally, columns with elaborate capitals support entryways, and expansive plazas are centered around fountains that are in perfect condition but no longer function. The city appears to have grown organically over time, with its small and meandering cobblestone alleys, suggesting that it was not planned. There's no moss or overgrowth, despite the neglect. Not a single building displayed indications of degradation. The stone surfaces were spotless and free of grime. The walls were sturdy, the windows were clear, and the rooftops were undamaged. Catherine was amazed by the entire edifice and took a few moments to survey the place, clearly attempting to take it all in. With eager hands, Frank was already pulling out his DSLR camera and adjusting the lens. He murmurs probably to himself, "It's unbelievable," as he begins to take photos in an attempt to convey the majesty in a single frame. What era does this look like? Could it be Roman or Mesopotamian? Thinking out loud, Mark briefly forgot about his camera and looked around the buildings. Even though it may be thousands of years old, it looks immaculate. The city feels old, but it exudes a timeless quality. Our best assumption is that it is very old, probably even older than any of the civilizations we studied in history class. But it appears to be brand new, unaffected by the passing of time, leading to a discrepancy between what we see and what we experience. The city is eerily silent despite the breathtaking picture. No one seems to be moving other than the wind, which occasionally rustles through what appear to be antique banners hanging from the buildings. Even the wind seems to move in hushed tones. It is evident that the eerie silence in the air dampens our excitement and replaces it with a tingling sense of caution. Don't you think it odd that a city this grand could be in such fine condition, but no one is here? "It's strange," says Michelle. "I think so, but perhaps that's also why it's in such fantastic condition. No one is here to destroy it." The sound of our shoes reverberates off the old stone walls around us as we enter the city's cobblestone streets. Alan, who has always possessed a natural ability to lead, accepts his fate and leads us farther into the city. With cameras in hand, Frank and Michelle trailed closely behind him, while Katie and I stood in the rear, vigilantly watching for any oddities. Even though there isn't anyone else in sight, the feeling that we are not alone grows the farther we walk. We saw a little plaza with buildings on either side that had balconies looking out over the neighborhood. Numerous stone figures with eerie details engraved on them stood in the center. These statues are not what one would expect. They are neither stoic nor heroic. Instead, their faces have been twisted into expressions of glaring anguish and fear. At this time, things were getting eerie and unsettling. Alan signaled to his friends to turn around and go home. They concluded that they were all trapped in the midst of nowhere. They oddly tried to escape, but they only continued going in circles, with no end in sight or edge that could point them in the direction of the old city. Fear took hold of them. This was quite unusual and bizarre. Strangely enough, why would someone make such fearsome-looking statues? As we continued into the city, we eventually got to a big square that seemed to be its hub. The region is expansive and encircled by tall buildings with balconies, providing an aerial perspective of the surroundings. A massive statue of what looks to be a deity dominates the square. The statue is painstakingly sculpted, with an ornate crown crowning its head and intricate patterns carved onto its garment. The deity's eyes have a hauntingly realistic aspect because they are inlaid with a kind of reflected stone. On the other hand, Alan is virtually wild with anticipation as he snaps pictures from various perspectives. Michelle seemed so uncomfortable and asked aloud why the place was so quiet. Her voice falters to a whisper as she wonders if anyone else senses that we're being watched. A chill runs down my spine, and I instinctively pull my backpack tighter. Catherine's gaze swept around, catching each of ours in turn. Yes, this place is amazing, but I have to admit that I'm getting the creeps from that. Surprisingly, we got to a road and the noises of the city filled the air with honking cars and people discussing the sounds of everyday life. Yet even in the middle of it all, I can still make out the sounds of that other planet. Alan reaches over and gives each of us a quick embrace. We were all relieved to be back, even if we were also terrified in ways that were beyond words. However, we're home, and that's enough. It has to be. Now, before we move ahead to the next story, please hit that subscribe button to Top Scares, where we bring you captivating horror and scary stories that are mind-blowing. You can also like, share, and comment on this video. Story 2. The Terrible Secret Tradition. We were a little unsure of what to expect as I entered Park in Milan and went through the ticket office and contemporary scanners. We had no idea what mysteries awaited Cole and I as we set out down the broad sandy trail. However, the intriguing tour around this once ancient city didn't start until the intense afternoon sun started to scorch us, and there was nowhere to escape the scorching heat. As we went via the Bab al-Sik gateway, hiking along the way, our cameras started to click almost immediately. We attempted to dodge the insane donkey and cart drivers while taking pictures of the odd-looking, severely deteriorated sandstone formations that bordered the wide thoroughfare. The architecture's deformity previously captivated us. We soon came into a canyon, or sik, that towered over us as we followed our route through the stink of donkey manure. The sandstone turned reddish-brown as the sun began to set. The sik's high walls towered over us, offering some respite from the heat. The canyon narrowed the farther we descended. The air was heavy with expectation. What enchanted treasures awaited us? It is, after all, a legitimate wonder and one of the 7 wonders of the world. Meanwhile, this ancient site dates back to a time before Christ, exactly when the Nabateans dominated this place and a bustling spice trading hub existed. They were particularly skilled at hydrological engineering, among other things. The proof is there as you walk around the sik. It is carved into the sandstone canyon walls. Every visitor or stranger who visited the ancient park was expected to stay there and could not leave the city. They would be stuck there forever. We initially believed everything to be a myth with no basis in reality. However, after giving it some thought, Cole and I saw that the city's population was larger, indicating that strangers were being forced to live there to become residents. Apparently, after hearing all this, the fun was over for me. I lost interest in hiking and couldn't even hold my camera to take additional pictures. I just wanted to get out of there. Fortunately, we discovered a narrow, hidden lane that opened up into a wide city. We left the ancient city by taking the road. It was indeed a shocking and fearful experience. From that day on, I don't think I enjoyed hiking again for fear of the unknown. What was your scary hiking experience? Let us know in the comment section below. Have you ever had a crazy imagination that felt so real? Check out our previous video, Chilling Paranormal Encounters.